The notification sound echoed through the empty computer lab at Jefferson High School. On the main monitor, lines of code scrolled rapidly across the screen, but this wasn't homework. 3 phones simultaneously displayed the same message: system compromised, data wiped. The devices went black one by one as their owners stared in disbelief from across the parking lot. Maya Chun sat hunched over the keyboard, her fingers dancing across the keys with surgical precision. Her broken phone lay beside her on the desk, its shattered screen reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights above. For the first time in months, she wasn't hiding. She wasn't running. She was finally fighting back. But this story didn't begin with revenge. It began 3 months earlier with a girl who just wanted to be invisible. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Maya had always been the kind of student who preferred the back corner of every classroom. At 17, she possessed an intellect that her teachers praised in parent conferences, but her classmates either ignored or resented. Her thick-rimmed glasses, oversized hoodies, and constant companion, a smartphone filled with coding apps and programming tutorials, marked her as different in a school where different meant target. The phone had been her lifeline. Not for social media or texting friends. Maya had precious few of those, but for learning. Every spare moment was spent watching coding tutorials, reading programming forums, and working on personal projects. She taught herself Python, JavaScript, and C++. Through YouTube videos and online courses, building small programs and apps that no one else would ever see. The phone contained years of her work, her digital portfolio, and her dreams of someday escaping Jefferson High for a computer science program at Stanford or meet her mother. Dr. Sarah Chun worked long hours at the city hospital as a surgeon. Her father, David Chun, traveled frequently for his consulting firm. They provided well for Maya materially, but struggled to understand their introverted daughter's passion for technology. To them, her constant focus on the phone seemed antisocial, unhealthy. They didn't realize it was her gateway to a world where logic mattered more than popularity, where problems had solutions, and where she could be competent instead of invisible. The bullying had started small, as it always does. Sophomore year brought whispered comments about her appearance, her accent when she spoke Mandarin to her grandmother during lunch breaks, her unfashionable clothes. Maya had learned to navigate these minor humiliations by staying quiet, keeping her head down, and finding refuge in the computer lab after school. But junior year introduced new tormentors, and with them, escalation. Brooke Wellington represented everything Maya wasn't. Tall, blonde, effortlessly popular, she commanded attention wherever she went. Her father owned Wellington Construction, the company responsible for half the new developments in their suburban Connecticut town. Her mother chaired the school board. Brooke's social media presence sparkled with thousands of followers, designer clothes, and the kind of confidence that came from never having to question your place in the world. Alongside Brooke stood her 2 closest friends, Jessica Martinez, whose family owned the largest car dealership in town, and Ashley Thompson, whose mother was the mayor. Together, they formed an untouchable trinity of wealth, influence, and social power. They weren't just popular, they were royalty in the ecosystem of Jefferson High. The first direct confrontation happened on a Tuesday in October. Maya had been working on a particularly complex algorithm during lunch, headphones in, lost in the logical beauty of her code. She didn't notice the 3 girls approaching until her phone was snatched from her hands. "Oh my God, look at this ancient thing," Brooke announced, holding Maya's phone up for her friends to see. "Is this from 2019? I literally can't even." Maya's phone wasn't ancient. It was a mid-range Android device, maybe 2 years old. But compared to the latest iPhones clutched by Brooke and her friends, it might as well have been a relic. Maya reached for it, but Brooke held it higher. "Please." "I need that back," Maya said quietly, her voice barely audible over the cafeteria noise. "You need this?" Brooke laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. "For what? Taking blurry selfies?" "Oh wait, you don't have any friends to send them to." Jessica and Ashley giggled on cue. Maya felt her face burning with embarrassment as other students began to notice the commotion. She stood up, reaching again for her phone, but Brooke tossed it to Jessica. "Keep away," Jessica called out, throwing the phone to Ashley. Maya found herself in the middle of a cruel game, lunging desperately for her device as the three girls laughed and tossed it between them. "Stop," Maya pleaded, tears starting to form behind her glasses. "Please just stop." "Aw, is the little nerd gonna cry?" Ashley cooed with mock sympathy. "Don't worry, we're just having fun." The game continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, a teacher intervened, and Maya got her phone back. But the damage was done. The entire cafeteria had witnessed her humiliation, and worse, she'd shown weakness. In the predatory social hierarchy of high school, weakness was blood in. The the incidents escalated over the following weeks. Her backpack would be accidentally knocked off tables, spilling her carefully organized notebooks and electronics across the floor. Her locker would be plastered with sticky notes. Reading, nerd alert, and loser. During group projects, she'd be deliberately excluded, forcing her to work alone while teachers assumed she preferred it that way. Maya's grades remained perfect, but her spirit began to crack. She stopped eating in the cafeteria, instead hiding in the library or computer lab. She avoided eye contact in hallways, developed routes through the school that minimized her chances of encountering Brooke's group. She became a ghost haunting her own high school experience. Her parents noticed the change but misunderstood its cause. When Maya's appetite decreased and her sleep became restless, they assumed it was academic stress. When she became even more withdrawn, they attributed it to typical teenage moodiness. Maya didn't correct them. How could she explain that the very place where she was supposed to be learning and growing had become a daily trial of survival? The phone remained her constant companion through all of this. During lunch periods hidden in empty classrooms, she'd lose herself in coding challenges. After school, when she was supposed to be doing homework, she'd instead work on a secret project, a comprehensive app that could monitor and manage home networks, complete with security features and user tracking capabilities. It was ambitious, complex, and her proudest achievement. She'd been working on it for 8 months, slowly adding features, debugging problems, dreaming of the day she could submit it as part of her college applications. By December, Maya had developed a routine that minimized her exposure to Brooke's group while maximizing her learning. She'd arrive at school early to use the computer lab, spend lunch periods in the library, and stay after school until the building was nearly empty. It wasn't a life exactly, but it was survivable. Then came the day that changed everything. Maya was walking to her locker after 6th period when she heard the familiar sound of Brooke's laughter echoing down the hallway. Her instinct was to turn around, find another route, wait until the coast was clear. But she needed her chemistry textbook for a test the next day, and her mother was already waiting in the parking lot to drive her to her part-time job at the local electronics store. She kept her head down, moved quickly, hoped to grab her book and escape unnoticed. But hope, she was learning, was a luxury she couldn't afford. Well, Brooke's voice cut through the hallway chatter like a blade. "If it isn't our favorite little tech support." Maya fumbled with her combination lock, her hands shaking slightly. Behind her, she could hear footsteps approaching, the soft whisper of designer shoes on linoleum. "I'm talking to you, Maya," Brooke continued, her voice closer now. "Don't you think it's rude to ignore someone who's trying to be friendly?" Maya turned slowly, clutching her phone protectively against her chest. Brooke stood with Jessica and Ashley, forming a semicircle that blocked Maya's escape routes. The hallway was emptying as students headed to their cars or after-school activities, leaving Maya increasingly isolated. "I wasn't ignoring you," Maya said quietly. "I just need to get my book." "Your book?" Brooke's eyes lit up with mock interest. "Oh, you mean you actually study? I thought you just Googled all the answers on that little computer of yours." She gestured toward Maya's phone, and Maya instinctively held it tighter. The device contained not just her current projects, but photos of her grandmother who had passed away the year before, voice messages from her parents when they traveled, and 8 months of work on her network management app. "It's not just for Googling," Maya said, surprising herself with her defensive tone. "I write programs, I code. I'm building an app that could actually help people manage their home networks more efficiently." The words tumbled out before she could stop them. She'd never talked about her work with anyone at school, never revealed the depth of her technical knowledge. But something about Brooke's dismissive attitude triggered a rare moment of pride. "Oh, wow," Brooke said, her voice dripping with false amazement. "You hear that, girls? Maya here is the next Steve Jobs. She's gonna revolutionize the world with her little phone apps." Jessica and Ashley laughed dutifully, but Maya caught something else in their expressions, a flicker of uncertainty, maybe even respect. They might not understand coding, but they understood ambition, and Maya's quiet confidence had momentarily shifted the dynamic. Brooke noticed it too, and her expression darkened. In the complex social calculations of high school, Maya had just committed a cardinal sin. She'd shown competence in front of an audience. Worse, she'd shown competence in an area where Brooke couldn't compete. "Let me see this revolutionary app," Brooke said, extending her hand. "I mean, if it's so amazing. You won't mind showing it off, right?" Maya stepped back, clutching her phone tighter. "It's not finished yet. It's still in development." "Come on, don't be modest," Brooke pressed, her voice taking on a dangerous edge. "We're all friends here. Share with the class." "I'd rather not," Maya said, her voice barely a whisper. "Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story." "I'd rather not," Brooke mimicked in a high-pitched, mocking tone. "God, you're pathetic. You talk all big about your coding skills, but you're too scared to show anyone your work. You're probably just playing Candy Crush and calling it programming." The insult hit harder than Maya expected. She'd spent countless hours on her app, sacrificing sleep, social activities, and even family time to perfect her code. The suggestion that she was lying about her abilities, that she was just another teenager wasting time on games, ignited something she'd kept buried for months. "I'm not lying," Maya said, her voice stronger now. "I really am building something important, something that could help people." "Prove it," Brooke challenged, taking a step closer. "Show us this amazing app that's going to change the world." Maya hesitated. The rational part of her mind screamed warnings. This was a trap. Brooke didn't actually care about her work. Nothing good could come from this interaction. But the part of her that had been beaten down for months, that had absorbed insult after insult in silence, suddenly wanted to fight back. "Fine," Maya said, unlocking her phone. "But you have to promise not to touch anything. This represents months of work." Brooke's smile widened, but it wasn't friendly. "Of course. I promise." Maya opened her development environment, revealing lines of code, user interface mockups, and testing logs. For a moment, she felt a flicker of pride as she explained the app's features, how it could monitor network traffic, identify security vulnerabilities, manage connected devices, and even track user behavior patterns. "So basically," Maya concluded, "it's like having a professional IT department for your home network, but in a single app." Jessica and Ashley looked genuinely impressed, their expressions showing the kind of respect Maya had never seen directed toward her. Even Brooke seemed momentarily taken aback by the sophistication of Maya's work. "That's actually pretty cool," Jessica admitted. "Yeah," Ashley added. "My dad's always complaining about our Wi-Fi being slow. This could probably help." For a brief, shining moment, Maya felt like she was being seen, really seen, for who she was rather than who she appeared to be. She imagined a different kind of high school experience, one where her skills earned her respect instead of ridicule, where her intelligence was valued instead of mocked. Then Brooke's expression shifted, and Maya realized she'd made a terrible mistake. "Wow, Maya," Brooke said, her voice honeyed with false sweetness. "This is really impressive. Can I just get a closer look?" Before Maya could react, Brooke had snatched the phone from her hands. But instead of examining the screen, she held it high above her head, just as she had months earlier in the cafeteria. "Give it back," Maya said, panic rising in her chest. "Brooke, please, you promised." "I promised not to touch anything," Brooke replied with a cruel smile. "I didn't promise to give it back." "Please," Maya begged, reaching desperately for her phone. "That's 8 months of work. You don't understand. I don't have backups of everything. Some of those files are irreplaceable." "Oh, now you tell us how important it is," Brooke laughed. "Maybe you should have thought about that before acting all superior with your fancy coding skills." Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she jumped futilely for her phone. Around them, the few remaining students in the hallway began to gather, drawn by the commotion. Some pulled out their own phones, recording the confrontation for social media. "Stop," Maya sobbed. "Please, I'll do anything. I'll stay away from you. I'll never talk about coding again. Just please give me back my phone." "Anything?" Brooke's eyes glittered with malice. "How about you get on your knees and beg? Right here, in front of everyone." The hallway fell silent, except for the sound of Maya's ragged breathing and the soft beeping of phones recording the scene. Maya looked around at the circle of faces, some showing pity, others excitement, most just hungry for drama. She thought about her app, her months of work, her dreams of college and a career in technology. She started to lower herself toward the floor. "Oh my God," Jessica whispered, her voice filled with what might have been genuine shock. "Brooke, maybe we should ... Should what?" Brooke snapped. "She wants her precious phone back. This is what it costs." Maya was halfway to her knees when she heard a sound that would haunt her for months, to come the sharp crack of plastic hitting concrete. She looked up to see her phone lying on the floor, its screen spider-webbed with cracks, its case split open, its internal components scattered like digital entrails. "Oops," Brooke said, her voice completely flat. "Butterfingers." Maya lunged for the broken device, gathering the pieces with shaking hands. The screen flickered once, displaying fragments of her app's code, then went dark forever. 8 months of work, countless hours of programming, her digital portfolio and college dreams, all reduced to plastic shards and silicon dust. "Maya," a voice called from the end of the hallway. "Your mom's here." Maya looked up to see Mrs. Patterson, the school secretary, approaching with a concerned expression. Behind her, other teachers were beginning to emerge from their classrooms, drawn by the commotion. "What happened here?" Mrs. Patterson asked, looking at the broken phone, Maya's tear-streaked face, and the circle of students with their recording devices. "Just an accident," Brooke said smoothly. Maya dropped her phone. "We were trying to help her pick up the pieces." Jessica and Ashley nodded in agreement, their expressions carefully neutral. The other students began to disperse already, uploading videos with captions like "Nerd Girl Meltdown" and "When Coding Goes Wrong." Maya sat on the floor, cradling the remains of her phone. Unable to speak, Mrs. Patterson helped her to her feet and walked her to the parking lot, where her mother waited with growing impatience. "Honey, what took so long?" Dr. Chun asked as Maya climbed into the car. "And what happened to your phone?" "I dropped it," Maya whispered. The first lie she'd told her parents in years. As they drove away from Jefferson High, Maya stared out the window at the school building that had become her prison. In her lap, the broken phone seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She thought about her app, her code, her dreams of a different life. All of it was gone, but as they pulled into their driveway, Maya made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to stay broken. She wasn't going to remain a victim. She was going to rebuild not just her app, but herself. And when she was done, Brooke Wellington and her friends would understand exactly what happened when you destroyed the wrong person's life's work. The war was just beginning. The electronics store where Maya worked part-time buzzed with the familiar hum of fluorescent lights and charging stations. Circuit City Express wasn't glamorous. Rows of phone cases, tangled charging cables, and refurbished laptops filled the cramped space. But it was Maya's sanctuary. Here, surrounded by processors and RAM modules, she felt competent again. "You're quiet today," observed Marcus Rivera, the store manager, as Maya methodically sorted through a box of returned devices. At 25, Marcus had dropped out of college to care for his younger siblings, but his knowledge of electronics rivaled any computer science professor. He'd hired Maya not out of pity, but because she could diagnose hardware problems faster than employees twice her age. Maya held up a tablet with a cracked screen, examining the damage pattern. "Someone dropped this from a significant height. The internal components are probably fine, but the digitizer is completely shot." "That's not what I meant," Marcus said gently. "You've been different since yesterday. Distracted. Want to talk about it?" Maya had spent the previous evening staring at the broken pieces of her phone, trying to salvage something, anything, from the wreckage. The memory card had survived, but most of her app's code had been stored in the device's internal memory, encrypted and now inaccessible. Months of work gone in seconds. "Someone at school broke my phone," she said finally. "It had important files on it." Marcus whistled low. "No backup?" "Some, but not everything." Maya's voice cracked slightly. "I had this project, something I'd been working on for months. It was going to be part of my college applications." "What kind of project?" Maya hesitated. She'd never described her work to anyone except her parents, and they'd never really understood. But Marcus was different. He spoke her language of circuits and code. "A network management app," she said. "Something that could monitor home networks, detect security threats, and manage connected devices. I'd built in user tracking capabilities, bandwidth optimization, even some basic AI for predicting network issues before they happened." Marcus stopped sorting inventory and looked at her with genuine interest. "That's actually brilliant. The market for that kind of consumer-level network management is huge. You built this yourself?" "Mostly. I mean, I used some open source libraries, but the core architecture was mine. The user interface, the security protocols, the database management, all original code." "Maya," Marcus said seriously, "that's not just a school project. That's a legitimate startup idea. You could probably get funding for something like that." For the first time since the incident, Maya felt a flicker of hope. "Really? Really? Really? But first, we need to get you back up and running. What do you need?" Maya looked around the store, her mind racing. She'd been so focused on mourning her lost work that she hadn't considered the possibilities surrounding her. Circuit City Express might not look like much, but it had everything she needed: computers, development tools, network equipment, and most importantly, a mentor who understood her vision. "I need a new phone," she said. "Something with enough processing power to run development tools. And I need access to a computer with a decent graphics card. My laptop at home is too slow for the kind of testing I want to do." Marcus nodded toward the back office, where a high-end gaming computer sat unused except for inventory management. That machine's got more power than we know what to do with. Previous owner was a cryptocurrency miner who couldn't make his payments. As long as you work on it after hours, it's yours. Maya felt tears welling up, but this time they weren't from frustration. Marcus, I can't afford to pay you extra for. Who said anything about paying? Marcus interrupted. Consider it an investment. If this app of yours takes off, maybe you'll remember the little electronics store that helped you get started. Over the next 2 weeks, Maya threw herself into rebuilding her project with an intensity that surprised even her. She arrived at Circuit City Express immediately after school, worked through her dinner break, and often stayed until Marcus had to lock up for the night. Her parents, relieved to see her engaged in something productive, didn't question her sudden devotion to her part-time job. But Maya wasn't just rebuilding her old app. She was improving it. The original version had been designed for legitimate network management, helping users optimize their home Wi-Fi, monitor their devices, and secure their connections. The new version retained all those capabilities but added features that Maya had never considered before: the ability to identify and exploit network vulnerabilities, to track user behavior in ways that bordered on surveillance, and to remotely access and control connected devices. This is impressive work, Marcus said one evening, reviewing Maya's code. But some of these features, they're pretty aggressive. Why does a network management app need the ability to remotely wipe devices? Maya paused in her typing. She'd been adding that particular feature while thinking about Brooke's iPhone, imagining the look on her face when all her photos and messages disappeared. Security, she said. If someone's device gets stolen, they'd want to be able to wipe it remotely. There are already apps for that, Marcus pointed out. Find My iPhone, Android Device Manager. Why reinvent the wheel? Maya didn't answer immediately. The truth was, she wasn't building a network management app anymore. She was building a weapon. The revelation came during lunch period on a Thursday. Maya was eating alone in the computer lab, working on her app's user interface, when she overheard a conversation from the hallway. Brooke's voice carried clearly through the thin walls. Did you see Maya's little meltdown got like 2,000 views? Brooke was saying. I mean, I almost feel bad for her, almost. The comments are brutal, Jessica replied. Someone made a meme out of her crying face. Maya's hands stilled on the keyboard. She opened her browser and searched for her name, finding the video within seconds. There she was, on her knees in the hallway, sobbing as she gathered the pieces of her broken phone. The caption read, "When your coding project gets debugged by gravity." The comments were worse than she'd imagined. Hundreds of strangers had watched her humiliation and found it entertaining. They called her pathetic, weird, a loser who deserved what she got. Some even suggested she should drop out of school entirely. But it was the final comment that made Maya's blood run cold. Someone should put this girl out of her misery. Maya closed the browser and stared at her reflection on the black screen. For months, she'd told herself that high school was temporary, that she just needed to survive until college. But this video would follow her forever. Every time she applied for a job, went on a date, or tried to make a fresh start, someone might recognize her as the girl who'd cried over a broken phone. She opened her app's code and began typing with furious precision. The first test came the following week. Maya had spent days mapping the school's network infrastructure, identifying every device that connected to the Wi-Fi, cataloging their security vulnerabilities. Jefferson High's IT department had implemented basic security measures, but they were designed to keep students from accessing inappropriate websites, not to defend against someone who understood the system's architecture. Maya's app could now identify any device on the network, access its location data, and exploit common security flaws. She'd also added a feature that she privately called digital fingerprinting, the ability to track a device's usage patterns, identifying its owner's habits, preferences, and vulnerabilities. She tested it on her own phone first, watching as the app mapped her device's connections, identified her most used apps, and even predicted her likely location at any given time. The level of access was both thrilling and terrifying. The next test would be on a real target. Maya chose Jessica's phone for the trial run. Jessica was the weakest link in Brooke's group, less confident, more prone to making mistakes. During chemistry class, Maya watched as Jessica connected to the school Wi-Fi to upload photos from the previous weekend's party. Maya's app identified Jessica's device within seconds. An iPhone 13 Pro registered to Jessica's iPhone with location. Services enabled and automatic backup activated. The security analysis revealed multiple vulnerabilities, an outdated operating system, weak passwords for several accounts, and a tendency to connect to unsecured networks. Maya's finger hovered over the execute button. One tap and she could access Jessica's photos, messages, contacts, and browsing history. She could delete files, send messages, or even lock the device permanently. The power was intoxicating, but she didn't press the button. Not yet. Instead, Maya spent the next few days observing, learning, and planning. She mapped the digital lives of Brooke, Jessica, and Ashley with the thoroughness of a detective. She learned that Brooke posted to Instagram compulsively, often sharing her location and daily schedule. Jessica had a weakness for online shopping and had saved multiple credit card numbers in her browser. Ashley was secretly dating someone her parents disapproved of, conducting the relationship entirely through encrypted messaging apps. Maya also discovered something interesting about the school's network infrastructure. The Wi-Fi system was connected to the building's security cameras, the intercom system, and even the electronic locks on certain doors. Someone with the right access could potentially control more than just phones and laptops. The knowledge was like a drug. For the first time in months, Maya felt powerful. She was no longer the helpless victim cowering in hallways. She was the one with the advantage, the one who could see everything while remaining invisible. But power without purpose was just data. Maya needed a plan. The opportunity came during the school's annual technology fair. Each year, students were encouraged to present projects that showcased their technical skills. Maya had never participated before. The idea of standing in front of crowds, explaining her work to judges who might not understand it, had been paralyzing. This year was different. Maya submitted her network management app as her project, but she submitted the original version, the legitimate one focused on home security and optimization. The judges were impressed by her technical skills, and she advanced to the final round of presentations. The technology fair was held in the school's main gymnasium with presentation booths arranged in rows and hundreds of students, parents, and community members wandering between displays. Maya set up her booth with nervous excitement, her laptop displaying her app's interface, her presentation materials carefully organized. She was adjusting her display when she heard familiar laughter from across the gymnasium. Brooke, Jessica, and Ashley were manning a booth for their social media marketing for local businesses project, essentially a PowerPoint presentation about Instagram strategies. Their booth was crowded with admirers, drawn more by the presenter's popularity than by the project's technical merit. "Oh my God," Brooke's voice carried across the space. "Is that Maya Chun? I can't believe she actually showed up to something social." Maya felt her old familiar panic rising, but this time it was accompanied by something else, a cold, calculating anger. She watched as Brooke held court at her booth, posing for selfies with visitors, her phone never more than arm's reach away. That evening, Maya worked late at Circuit City Express, putting the finishing touches on her real project. Marcus had gone home hours earlier, leaving her alone with the powerful computer and her thoughts. She'd been planning this moment for weeks, but now that it was here, She felt a mixture of excitement and terror. She opened her laptop and connected to the school's network, using credentials she'd discovered weeks earlier. The IT department had been careless with their administrative passwords, and Maya had been patient in her reconnaissance. Her app's interface glowed on the screen, displaying a map of every device connected to Jefferson High's network. She could see teachers' laptops, students' phones, even the network-connected printers and smartboards. Each device was a potential target, a digital life she could disrupt with a few keystrokes. But Maya had learned patience. She wasn't going to strike randomly or in anger. She was going to be strategic. She began with reconnaissance, using her app to map the digital territories of her targets. Brooke's phone was the primary objective, an iPhone 14 Pro Max that contained her entire social media empire. Jessica's device held her online shopping accounts and personal messages. Ashley's phone contained evidence of her secret relationship and her college application materials. Maya spent hours learning their patterns, their vulnerabilities, their digital lives. She discovered that Brooke had terrible password hygiene, using the same simple password for multiple accounts. Jessica had a weakness for clicking on suspicious links, probably indicating malware infections. Ashley was paranoid about privacy, but had made critical mistakes in her security settings. By midnight, Maya had compiled detailed profiles of all three targets. She knew their schedules, their habits, their fears, and their weaknesses. She could have destroyed their digital lives that night, but she wanted something more than random destruction. She wanted justice. The plan that emerged was elegant in its simplicity. Maya wouldn't just attack their devices. She would use their own digital habits against them. She would turn their phones into witnesses to their own cruelty, their social media accounts into evidence of their behavior, their online presence into a liability they couldn't escape. But first, she needed to make sure they understood exactly what they had done to her. Maya opened a new document and began typing a message that would change everything. You broke my phone. You destroyed my work. You humiliated me in front of the entire school. You thought I was powerless, that I would just accept being your victim forever. You were wrong. Tomorrow you'll understand what happens when you hurt someone who knows how to fight back. Your devices are mine now. Your secrets are mine now. Your digital lives are mine now. And I'm just getting started. She scheduled the message to be sent to all three girls simultaneously at exactly 8 a.m. the next morning, right when they would be arriving at school, phones in hand, ready to start another day of casual cruelty. Maya saved her work, backed up her files, and headed home. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. As she walked through the empty streets of her neighborhood, Maya felt a transformation taking place inside her. The scared, helpless girl who had begged for her phone back was gone. In her place stood someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Brooke Wellington had no idea what was coming for her, but she was about to find out. Friday morning arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made everything feel electric. Maya sat in her first period advanced placement computer science class, watching the clock tick toward 8 a.m. Her laptop was open to what appeared to be homework, but beneath the innocent facade, her custom application ran silently, monitoring the school's network traffic like a digital spider waiting in its web. At exactly 7:58 a.m., she watched three familiar device signatures connect to the Jefferson High Wi-Fi network. Brooke's iPhone 14 Pro Max, Jessica's iPhone 13 Pro, and Ashley's iPhone 12, all arriving for another day of classes, completely unaware that they were walking into a carefully constructed trap. Maya's finger hovered over the execute button. 2 years of coding experience, weeks of planning, and months of suppressed rage had led to this moment. At 8 a.m. precisely, she pressed enter. The messages deployed simultaneously across all three devices, appearing as priority notifications that couldn't be dismissed without reading. Maya had programmed them to look like official school announcements, complete with the Jefferson High logo and formatting that matched legitimate communications. Across the school, she imagined 3 girls stopping dead in their tracks as they read her words. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating, not just the threat, but the realization that someone had gained access to their most personal devices. Maya closed her laptop and walked to her locker, timing her route to intersect with Brooke's usual morning path. She wanted to see the immediate aftermath of her digital strike. She found Brooke standing frozen outside the main office, staring at her phone with an expression Maya had never seen before, genuine fear. Jessica and Ashley flanked her, their own devices displaying the same threatening message, their faces pale with shock. "This has to be some kind of joke," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling. "Right? Someone's just messing with us." "How did they get our numbers?" Ashley demanded, frantically tapping at her screen. "And how did they make it look like an official school message?" Brooke's response was characteristically aggressive, but Maya could hear the uncertainty beneath the bravado. "It's probably just some loser who thinks they're a hacker. We'll report it to the administration, and they'll figure out who sent it." Maya walked past them toward her locker, close enough to hear every word but maintaining her usual invisible presence. None of them suspected her. She was still just the quiet girl they'd humiliated, too pathetic to pose any real threat. That assumption would be their downfall. In second period history class, Maya initiated phase 2 of her plan. Using her app's remote access capabilities, she began what she privately called digital archaeology, carefully exploring the contents of her target's phones, without leaving obvious traces of intrusion. Brooke's device was a goldmine of incriminating evidence. Screenshots of cruel messages about other students, photos of classmates taken without permission and edited with insulting captions, even a group chat dedicated entirely to planning pranks and humiliations. Maya documented everything, building a comprehensive archive of Brooke's cruelty. But the real treasure was buried deeper in Brooke's photo gallery. Images from a party 3 weeks earlier, where several underage students were clearly drinking alcohol. Brooke had been careful not to post these photos publicly, understanding their potential consequences, but she'd kept them as leverage over other party attendees. Maya copied the images and cross-referenced them with Brooke's contact list. She identified 15 other students in the photos, including several who were scholarship athletes and honor roll students. Brooke had effectively been holding their futures hostage, using the threat of exposure to maintain her social dominance. Jessica's phone revealed a different kind of vulnerability. Her browser history showed compulsive online shopping, often during class hours, with saved credit card information across multiple retail websites. More concerning were the personal loans she'd taken out through questionable online lenders, apparently to fund her expensive lifestyle. Her debt was approaching 5 figures, hidden from her parents through a web of deception and forged documents. Ashley's device contained the most personally damaging information. The secret relationship Maya had discovered was more complicated than she'd initially realized. Ashley wasn't just dating someone her parents disapproved of. She was involved with Jake Morrison, a 22-year-old college dropout who worked at a local tattoo parlor. The relationship had become physical, and Ashley had been documenting their encounters through photos and messages that would destroy her reputation and possibly land Jake in legal trouble. Maya felt a momentary pang of conscience as she reviewed the intimate images. She wasn't a voyeur or a blackmailer. She was someone seeking justice for months of torment. But the power to destroy these girls' lives with a few strategic revelations was intoxicating in a way that made her uncomfortable. She decided to start small. During lunch period, Maya sat in the computer lab, ostensibly working on a programming assignment. In reality, she was orchestrating what she thought of as a proof-of-concept demonstration. She wanted her targets to understand that the morning's threatening message hadn't been an empty gesture. At exactly 12:15 p.m., She initiated a targeted attack on Jessica's Instagram account. Using credentials she'd extracted from Jessica's saved passwords, Maya logged into the account and began making subtle but noticeable changes. She unfollowed several of Jessica's closest friends, like posts from accounts that Jessica would never normally engage with, and added embarrassing comments to photos from popular students. The effects were immediate and cascading. Jessica's friends began texting her, asking why she'd unfollowed them, why she was acting strange online, why she'd left weird comments on their posts. Jessica spent the entire lunch period frantically trying to undo the damage, changing her password and explaining to confused friends that her account had been hacked. But Maya wasn't finished. She used her access to Jessica's device to send a group text to the other members of Brooke's inner circle. Can't hang out today. Having family drama. Also, did you guys know that Maya Chen is actually really smart? I looked up her project from the tech fair, and it's actually impressive. Maybe we've been too hard on her. The message was subtle enough to seem genuine, but inflammatory enough to create suspicion. Maya watched from across the cafeteria as Jessica's phone began buzzing with confused responses from her friends. The look of panic on Jessica's face as she read the outgoing message was deeply satisfying. "I didn't send that," Jessica insisted to Brooke and Ashley, her voice rising with desperation. "I swear I didn't send that message. Someone else is using my phone." "That's impossible," Brooke replied, but Maya could see doubt creeping into her expression. "Phones don't just send messages by themselves." "Unless someone really did hack us," Ashley said quietly, like the message this morning warned. The seeds of paranoia were taking root exactly as Maya had planned. But she wasn't ready to reveal the full extent of her capabilities. Not yet. That afternoon, Maya attended her shift at Circuit City Express with a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in months. Marcus noticed her improved mood immediately. "You seem different today," he observed as they unpacked a shipment of tablet accessories. More confident. "I've been making progress on my project," Maya replied, which was technically true. "Testing some new features, working out bugs in the system. The network management app, how's it coming along?" Maya paused, realizing she'd never told Marcus about the modifications she'd made to her original design. He still thought she was building a legitimate consumer application, not a sophisticated digital weapon. "It's more powerful than I initially planned," she said carefully. "The feature set has expanded significantly." Marcus nodded approvingly. "That's good. Scope creep can be a problem in software development, but adding valuable features is never a bad thing. Just make sure you're not overcomplicating the user interface." "Actually," Maya said, "I've been thinking about the ethical implications of some of the features I've built. How much access should a network management app have? How much control should users have over other people's devices?" Marcus looked at her with interest. "That's a mature question. A lot of developers don't think about the ethical implications of their code until it's too late. What kind of features are you worried about?" Maya chose her words carefully. "Things like remote device access, data monitoring, the ability to track user behavior. All of these features have legitimate uses, but they could also be misused." "The classic dual-use problem," Marcus agreed. "Almost any powerful technology can be used for good or evil. The key is building in safeguards, requiring user consent, and being transparent about what your software does." "What if someone used those features for revenge?" Maya asked. "What if they used the software to hurt people who had hurt them?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying Maya's face. "That would be crossing a line from developer to vigilante," he said finally. "And vigilantes, even digital ones, usually end up causing more harm than good. Why do you ask?" Maya felt a flush of shame. Marcus trusted her, had helped her rebuild after her phone was destroyed. And here she was contemplating using his resources to wage a digital war against her classmates. "Just thinking through potential misuse cases," she said. trying to be responsible. That's good, Marcus replied, but his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced by her explanation. Maya, if someone's bothering you at school, there are better ways to handle it than technology-based solutions. Have you talked to your parents, the school administration? It's not that simple, Maya said. Sometimes the system doesn't protect people like me. People like you, quiet people, weird people, people who don't fit in. Maya's voice grew more intense. The popular kids can do whatever they want because they have protection, rich parents, social connections, the benefit of the doubt from adults. When they hurt someone like me, it's treated as a minor conflict or a misunderstanding. But when I try to defend myself, I'm the problem. Marcus set down the inventory he'd been sorting and looked at Maya directly. That sounds like you're speaking from experience. What happened? Maya almost told him everything. The words were right there, ready to spill out. The months of harassment, the destroyed phone, the humiliation video that was still circulating online. But admitting the truth would mean confessing what she'd already done and what she was planning to do next. Nothing specific, she said instead. Just general observations about how high school works. Marcus didn't look convinced, but he didn't push further. Well, he said finally, whatever you're dealing with, remember that revenge usually creates more problems than it solves. The best revenge is often just succeeding despite the people who tried to hold you back. Maya nodded and smiled, but internally, she disagreed. Marcus meant well, but he didn't understand the depth of her humiliation or the power of her new capabilities. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't success. It was showing your enemies exactly how powerless they really were. That evening, Maya prepared for phase 3 of her plan. She demonstrated her ability to access and manipulate her target's devices. Now she wanted to escalate the psychological pressure while gathering more intelligence about their vulnerabilities. She began with Ashley, whose secret relationship represented the most volatile situation. Using her access to Ashley's messaging apps, Maya began documenting the relationship's timeline and gathering evidence of Ashley's deception. She discovered that Ashley had been lying to her parents about her whereabouts, telling them she was studying with friends while actually spending time with Jake. More seriously, Maya found evidence that Ashley had been forging her parents' signatures on school documents and using her mother's credit card for expenses related to the relationship. The financial fraud alone could result in serious legal consequences. Maya compiled everything into a comprehensive file, complete with screenshots, timestamps, and cross-referenced evidence. She wasn't planning to expose Ashley immediately, but she wanted to have the option if the situation escalated. For Brooke, Maya took a different approach. Instead of gathering more evidence, she began what she thought of as subtle manipulation, making small changes to Brooke's digital environment that would create confusion and paranoia without being obvious enough to trace. She adjusted Brooke's alarm settings, making them 5 minutes late. She changed autocorrect settings to replace common words with slightly embarrassing alternatives. She modified notification settings so that some messages would arrive delayed, while others would repeat multiple times. The effects were cumulative and maddening. Brooke began experiencing a series of minor digital inconveniences that seemed random, but were actually carefully orchestrated. Her phone would autocorrect definitely to defiantly in important texts. Her Instagram stories would post at the wrong times. Her navigation app would occasionally suggest unnecessarily complicated routes. Each incident was small, enough to dismiss as a glitch, but together they created a pattern of technological unreliability that made Brooke question her device's integrity. Maya also began monitoring Brooke's communications more closely, looking for opportunities to create social friction within her group. She discovered that Brooke had been making disparaging comments about Jessica and Ashley to other friends, expressing frustration with their neediness and drama. Using this intelligence, Maya began planting seeds of discord. She would delay message delivery between the three girls, causing confusion about plans and meetings. She would modify read receipts to make it appear that messages had been ignored. She would occasionally insert subtle typos into Brooke's outgoing messages that changed their tone from friendly to dismissive. The strategy was working. By Thursday of the following week, Maya could observe increasing tension within the group during lunch periods and between classes. The three girls who had once moved through the school like an unstoppable force were beginning to fracture under the pressure of unexplained digital chaos and growing mutual suspicion. But Maya's greatest success came through an unexpected opportunity. While monitoring Brooke's email accounts, she discovered that Brooke had been nominated for the prestigious Wellington Family Scholarship, a full-ride college scholarship funded by her own family's foundation. The scholarship was supposed to be awarded based on merit and community service, but Maya found email exchanges suggesting that Brooke's acceptance was essentially guaranteed due to her family connections. More damaging were emails between Brooke and her college counselor discussing strategies for presenting Brooke's volunteer work in the most favorable light. The counselor had helped Brooke exaggerate her involvement with various charitable organizations, claiming leadership roles she'd never held in community service hours she'd never completed. Maya realized she was looking at a comprehensive case of academic fraud that could destroy not just Brooke's college prospects, but potentially implicate her family's foundation in corruption. The power of this discovery was overwhelming. With a few strategic revelations, Maya could destroy Brooke's future entirely. She could expose the fraud to the scholarship committee, the college admissions offices, even the local media. Brooke would lose her college admission, face potential legal consequences, and watch her family's reputation crumble. But as Maya stared at the evidence on her screen, she realized that total destruction wasn't what she wanted. She didn't want to become the kind of person who obliterated lives for personal satisfaction. She wanted justice, not annihilation. She wanted Brooke to understand what it felt like to be powerless, to be afraid, to have your future hanging by a thread that someone else controlled. She wanted Brooke to experience the same helplessness Maya had felt in that hallway, begging for mercy that never came. Maya closed the files and began planning her next move. The endgame was approaching, and it would require perfect timing and precise execution. Brooke Wellington was about to learn that some people fought back in ways she'd never imagined. The winter formal dance was 2 weeks away when Maya decided to end the game. For 3 months, she had systematically dismantled Brooke Wellington's digital empire piece by piece, watching her tormentors struggle with increasingly bizarre technical problems while growing more paranoid and fractured as a group. But Maya had learned something important during her campaign of digital warfare. Revenge without resolution was just another form of suffering. She made her decision during a particularly gray February morning, watching Brooke frantically try to recover from another night of mysterious phone glitches. Maya had spent the previous evening rerouting Brooke's college application submissions, ensuring they arrived just late enough to create administrative complications, but not so late as to cause permanent damage. It was precisely calibrated cruelty. And Maya realized she was becoming someone she didn't recognize. The revelation came while reviewing security footage from the school's camera system, which her app had accessed weeks earlier. She watched herself walking through the hallways, noting how her posture had changed over the months. The hunched shoulders and downcast eyes were gone, replaced by the confident stride of someone who held secrets and wielded power. But there was something else in her expression, a coldness that reminded her uncomfortably of Brooke's cruel smile on the day her phone was destroyed. Maya closed the footage and made a decision that would have seemed impossible 3 months earlier. She was going to end this, but not through continued torment. She was going to reveal everything, not just to her victims, but to the entire school, in a way that would create justice rather than mere revenge. The plan she developed was audacious in its scope and elegant in its execution. The winter formal would serve as her stage, with the entire Jefferson High community as witnesses. She would orchestrate a comprehensive revelation that exposed not just the bullying she'd endured, but the systematic cruelty that Brooks Group had inflicted on dozens of other students over the years. Maya spent the following week preparing what she privately called the archive, a meticulously organized, digital exhibition of evidence she'd gathered during her months of surveillance. Screenshots of cruel group chats, documentation of harassment campaigns, evidence of academic fraud, and comprehensive profiles of every student who had been targeted by Brooks Group. The archive wasn't just about destruction. Maya had also compiled evidence of the positive impact that many of Brooks' victims had made despite their treatment. She'd tracked down students who had transferred schools, graduated early, or simply disappeared from social view, documenting their achievements and contributions. The presentation would show not just the damage that bullying caused, but the potential that was lost when talented people were driven away. The technical execution required every skill Maya had developed over the past year. She would need to simultaneously access the school's public address system, the auditorium's projection equipment, and every smartphone in the building. The timing would have to be perfect, the message impossible to ignore or suppress. Maya also made a decision that surprised her. She would include herself in the revelation. Her own campaign of digital harassment would be documented alongside Brooks' cruelty, presented as evidence of how victims could become perpetrators when the cycle of abuse continued unchecked. 3 days before the formal, Maya encountered an unexpected obstacle. Marcus had been watching her work more closely, and his concerns about her project's capabilities had grown into active suspicion. "Maya," he said during what should have been a routine inventory shift, "I need to ask you something directly, and I need you to be honest with me." Maya looked up from the tablet she'd been pretending to repair. "What do you mean?" "Your network management app. The one you've been working on for months. What exactly does it do?" The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Maya had been dreading this moment, the point where her mentor's trust collided with her need for secrecy. She could lie, deflect, or simply refuse to answer. But Marcus had been the only adult who had truly helped her, and she owed him the truth. "It does what I said it does," Maya replied carefully. "But it also does more." "How much more?" Maya set down the tablet and looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "It can access any device on a network, monitor communications, track user behavior, and remotely control connected systems. It can essentially turn someone's digital life into an open book." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his expression cycling through surprise, disappointment, and concern. "And you've been using these capabilities on other people?" "Yes." "People who hurt you?" "Yes." Marcus leaned against the repair counter, suddenly looking older than his 25 years. "Maya, what you're describing isn't network management. It's surveillance software, potentially illegal surveillance software." "I know," Maya said quietly, "but they destroyed my phone. They humiliated me in front of the entire school. They made my life hell for months, and nobody did anything to stop them." "So you decided to become judge, jury, and executioner?" The words stung because they were accurate. "I decided to fight back." "By violating other people's privacy? By accessing their personal information without consent? Maya, you could face serious legal consequences for this. And more importantly, you're becoming the kind of person you originally stood against." Maya felt tears forming behind her glasses. Marcus was right, and she'd known it for weeks. But admitting it meant confronting the reality that her quest for justice had transformed her into something she didn't want to be. "I know," she whispered, "but I can't undo what I've done. And I can't let them continue hurting other people." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, clearly struggling with the revelation. Finally he spoke. "What's your endgame? What do you actually want to accomplish?" Maya explained her plan for the winter formal, the comprehensive revelation, the Public accounting, the exposure of systematic cruelty that had been allowed to flourish in Jefferson High's halls. She described the archive, her documentation of bullying patterns, her evidence of administrative indifference. But, she added, I'm also going to expose what I've done. My surveillance, my digital harassment, my own descent into the kind of behavior I was fighting against. I want people to understand the complete cycle, how victims become perpetrators when justice fails. Marcus listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When Maya finished, he asked a single question. And after this revelation? What happened to you? Maya had been avoiding that question for weeks. The answer was likely suspension, possible criminal charges, certain social exile, and the destruction of her college prospects. But she'd reached a point where continuing the cycle felt more destructive than ending it. I don't know, she admitted. But I can't keep being this person. And I can't let them keep being who they are. Marcus nodded slowly. Then you're going to need help. The winter formal took place on the first Saturday in March, transforming Jefferson High's gymnasium into an elegant ballroom with professional lighting, decorations, and a DJ setup that connected to the school's comprehensive audiovisual system. Maya had volunteered for the technology committee, giving her legitimate access to the equipment she would need for her revelation. She arrived early, ostensibly to help with setup, but actually to install the final components of her plan. Hidden within her evening purse was a small device that would connect her laptop to every system in the building: speakers, projectors, the DJ's equipment, even the emergency broadcast system. Maya had spent considerable time on her appearance for the evening. She wore a simple but elegant black dress that her mother had helped her select, and she'd replaced her usual thick-rimmed glasses with contact lenses. The transformation was subtle but significant. She looked like a different person, and she felt like 1-2. Brooke arrived fashionably late as expected, accompanied by Jessica and Ashley in an impressive display of coordinated glamour. Their group had weathered Maya's months of digital harassment, but the strain was visible in their interactions. They maintained their public unity, but Maya could see the cracks in their friendship, the suspicion and paranoia that her campaign had fostered. The evening progressed normally for the first 2 hours. Students danced, posed for photos, and enjoyed the temporary transformation of their familiar school environment. Maya waited patiently, monitoring the crowd through the building's security cameras while her application tracked every phone connected to the event's Wi-Fi network. At exactly 9:30 p.m., during the traditional slow dance segment that drew couples onto the floor, Maya initiated her final protocol. The music faded gradually, replaced by Maya's voice speaking through every speaker in the building. But she wasn't speaking live, she'd pre-recorded a comprehensive presentation that would be impossible to interrupt or stop once it began. Good evening, Jefferson High, her recorded voice began, calm and measured. My name is Maya Chun, and I have something important to share with all of you. The gymnasium fell silent as students looked around in confusion. On every screen in the building, the DJ's projectors, the hallway monitors, even the smartphones connected to the Wi-Fi, Maya's presentation began to play. 3 months ago, several students destroyed my phone and humiliated me in front of our entire school community. The incident was recorded and posted online, where it received thousands of views and hundreds of cruel comments. This experience taught me something important about the nature of power, justice, and revenge. The first images appeared on screen. Screenshots of the original video, comments from social media, documentation of the aftermath. Maya watched from her position near the DJ booth as recognition spread through the crowd. Students began pulling out their phones, but found their devices locked to Maya's presentation. But my story isn't unique, the presentation continued. Over the past several months, I've documented similar incidents involving dozens of students. At our school, what you're about to see is a comprehensive record of systematic bullying, harassment, and cruelty that has been ignored by our administration and enabled by our social structures. The archive began to unfold across every screen. Chat logs showing Brooks Group planning humiliations for other students. Photos of cruel pranks. Evidence of academic sabotage, social manipulation, and psychological warfare waged against anyone who didn't fit their narrow definition of acceptable. Maya had organized the evidence chronologically and thematically, creating a devastating portrait of institutional cruelty. But she'd been careful to protect the privacy of victims while exposing the actions of perpetrators. Names of targets were redacted, while the actions of bullies were documented in detail. The gymnasium was completely silent now, except for Maya's recorded voice methodically presenting evidence. Students who had never realized the scope of the problem watched in horror as patterns of abuse became undeniable. Teachers and chaperones looked on with growing recognition of their own failures. To intervene. This behavior wasn't hidden, Maya's voice continued. It happened in hallways, classrooms, and online spaces that adults could have monitored. It was reported by victims and witnessed by bystanders. But it continues because our social system protects certain people while abandoning others. The presentation reached its climax with financial records showing the Wellington family's charitable donations to Jefferson High, email exchanges revealing preferential treatment for connected families, and evidence of administrative decisions that prioritized reputation over student welfare. But Maya wasn't finished. However, her recorded voice said as the imagery shifted, "I need to confess something equally important. In response to my treatment, I developed and deployed surveillance software that allowed me to monitor, manipulate, and control the digital lives of my tormentors. For 3 months, I engaged in systematic harassment that was just as invasive and cruel as what I had experienced. New evidence appeared on screen. Logs of Maya's digital intrusions, documentation of her manipulation tactics, evidence of her own descent into the behavior she claimed to oppose. She held nothing back, exposing her violations of privacy, her psychological warfare, her transformation from victim to perpetrator. I'm showing you this because I want you to understand something crucial. Hurt people. When justice fails, victims often become perpetrators. When systems don't protect the vulnerable sometimes become predators. This cycle only ends when we choose to break it. The final segment of the presentation was different. Instead of documenting cruelty, it showcased resilience. Maya had tracked down former Jefferson High students who had transferred, graduated early, or simply disappeared after being bullied. The screen showed their current achievements, college acceptances, artistic accomplishments, scientific discoveries, community contributions. These are the students we lost, Maya's voice concluded. These are the contributions our school could have celebrated if we had chosen protection over indifference, inclusion over exclusion, justice over convenience. This is what we sacrifice when we allow cruelty to flourish. The presentation ended with a simple message. The cycle ends here, tonight, with all of us choosing to be better. As the screens went dark and the building's lights returned to normal, Maya stepped forward from her position near the DJ booth. The entire gymnasium turned to look at her, this quiet girl who had just orchestrated the most comprehensive public reckoning in Jefferson High's history. Principal Matthews was the first to move, striding toward Maya with an expression of fury and disbelief. But before he could reach her, something unexpected happened. Sarah Kim, a senior who had transferred schools the previous year after being bullied by Brooks Group, stepped out of the crowd. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent gymnasium. "Thank you for finally saying what needed to be said." Others began to step forward. Students who had been targets, witnesses who had remained silent, even some of Brooks' former friends who had grown uncomfortable with her behavior. Within minutes, Maya found herself surrounded by dozens of students who had been waiting years for someone to speak their truth. But the most significant moment came when Maya saw Brooke Wellington standing alone near the gymnasium's exit, her designer dress and perfect makeup unable to hide the devastation in her expression. For the first time since Maya had known her, Brooke looked genuinely vulnerable, not angry, not defiant, but lost. Maya walked toward her former tormentor, the crowd parting silently. When she reached Brooke, she spoke quietly, her words meant. "For no one else. It didn't have to be this way," Maya said. "If you had just apologized. If you had just stopped. If you had just shown one moment of genuine remorse for what you did to me and all the others. But you couldn't, because admitting you were wrong would have meant admitting you weren't perfect." Brooke looked at Maya with an expression that might have been recognition or regret or simply exhaustion. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Maya replied, "we all deal with the consequences of our choices. You with yours, and me with mine." The aftermath of Maya's revelation unfolded over the following weeks with the inexorable logic of cause and effect. Principal Matthews attempted to punish Maya for unauthorized access to school systems, but the evidence she had revealed forced the school board to investigate deeper issues of administrative negligence and preferential treatment. Several teachers were disciplined for ignoring bullying reports, and new policies were implemented to protect vulnerable students. Brooke Wellington lost her college scholarship after the evidence of academic fraud reached the admissions offices of her prospective universities. Her family's foundation faced investigation for corruption, and Brooke herself was required to attend counseling sessions and perform community service. But she wasn't expelled. Instead, she was given the opportunity to demonstrate genuine change. Through accountability and service, Jessica Martinez's family intervened when her financial problems were revealed, getting her professional help for compulsive spending and ensuring she received proper support for underlying mental health issues that had contributed to her behavior. Ashley Thompson's relationship with Jake Morrison was exposed, leading to family intervention and counseling for both parties. While initially devastating, the crisis ultimately brought Ashley closer to her parents and helped her understand the importance of honesty in relationships. Maya faced her own consequences. She was suspended for 2 weeks and required to surrender all evidence of her surveillance activities to authorities. Her college applications were delayed while legal experts determined whether criminal charges would be filed. Ultimately, prosecutors decided that her age, the circumstances that motivated her actions, and her voluntary disclosure of her crimes warranted restorative rather than punitive justice. But the most significant consequence was internal. Maya had to live with the knowledge that she had become, however temporarily, the kind of person who violated others' privacy and dignity for personal satisfaction. The experience taught her that justice and revenge were fundamentally different forces, and that choosing one over the other required constant vigilance. Marcus continued to employ Maya at Circuit City Express, but their relationship changed. He became not just a technical mentor, but a moral guide, helping her understand the ethical implications of technological power. Together, they developed a modified version of Maya's network management application, one focused entirely on legitimate security purposes, with robust safeguards against misuse. 6 months after the winter formal, Maya received an unexpected visitor at the electronics store. Brooke Wellington entered wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, looking more like a regular teenager than the social media princess Maya remembered. "I wanted to apologize," Brooke said without preamble. "Not because I have to, but because I need to. What I did to you was wrong. What I did to a lot of people was wrong, and I'm trying to figure out how to be better." Maya looked at her former tormentor, noting the genuine uncertainty in her expression. "Are you?" "I'm trying," Brooke replied. "It's harder than I thought it would be. Being honest, I mean. Taking responsibility. I've been talking to some of the people I hurt, And I'm realizing how much damage I caused without even thinking about it. And what have you learned? Brooke was quiet for a moment, clearly struggling with the question. That hurt people, she said finally. Just like you said in your presentation. I was dealing with my own problems by making other people feel small. It didn't solve anything, it just spread the pain around. Maya felt a complex mixture of emotions, satisfaction, skepticism, and something that might have been respect. What are you going to do with that knowledge? I don't know yet, Brooke admitted, but I wanted to start by saying I'm sorry. Really? Sorry, not for getting caught, but for what I did. Maya nodded slowly. Apology accepted. But the real test isn't what you say, it's what you do going forward. Brooke left the store without drama or fanfare. Just two young women who had learned difficult lessons about power, justice, and the price of cruelty. Maya watched her go, then returned to her work on a legitimate network security application. That might actually help protect people rather than harm them. The cycle, she realized, really could end. But only if people chose to break it, one decision at a time. 2 years later, Maya Chung graduated as valedictorian of Jefferson High School. Her commencement speech focused on the importance of using technology to build bridges rather than walls, to protect the vulnerable rather than exploit them. In the audience, several former classmates listened with recognition and respect, including Brooke Wellington, who had spent her senior year working with younger students to prevent bullying and create more inclusive social environments. Maya's network management application eventually became a successful startup, with Marcus as her business partner and co-founder. But more importantly, it remained true to its original vision, protecting people's digital lives rather than exploiting them. Maya had learned that the greatest revenge against those who tried to make her feel powerless was simply refusing to become powerless, and using her power to protect others from the pain she had experienced. The story of Maya Chun became a legend at Jefferson High School, not as a cautionary tale about the dangers of revenge, but as a complex narrative about justice, accountability, and the possibility of redemption for both victims and perpetrators. It reminded everyone that beneath the surface of teenage social drama lay fundamental questions about how power should be used, how communities should protect their vulnerable members, and how individuals could choose to be better than their worst impulses. Maya never forgot the feeling of being powerless, which made her determined to ensure that others never experienced that same helplessness. But she also never forgot how easily she had slipped into becoming someone she didn't recognize, which kept her vigilant about the ethical implications of every choice she made. In the end, the greatest lesson wasn't about technology or revenge. It was about the importance of breaking cycles of harm before they consumed everyone involved. Maya had learned to code not just computers, but herself, programming her future with values that prioritize protection over destruction, justice over revenge, and healing over perpetual conflict. The devices had disappeared, but what replaced them was infinitely more valuable. A community that had learned to see its own capacity for both cruelty and compassion, and had chosen to nurture the better angels of its nature. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.